Joining me now is a former spokesperson for the Israeli government and retired IDF colonel who fought inside Gaza, Miri Eisin. Miri, thank you very much for joining us. Let me ask you about what's happening right now with the Israeli government. This idea that they're asking Gazans to flee south for the first time, and I've asked a number of officials where a safe zone is. For the first time today, we heard Benjamin Netanyahu say it was in the southeast of Gaza. Is that message getting through to Gazans who are looking for safety?
Katie, in its own way, it's kind of, to me, like the question is surprising. The Israeli Defense Forces, in Arabic, in every possible way, have been approaching and telling the people of the northern Gaza Strip for literally the last 3 weeks to go south. This is not something that started today with Benjamin Netanyahu. They put out a map and they said, go down south of this arena. They said, go down south. And at the beginning, in the first week, you saw a lot of people going south until Hamas started to stop them. And then Hamas told them, don't go south. And then Hamas said, come back up north. This is that situation where Hamas, that same genocidal terror organization, if I'm allowed to say that on the air, is not only planning the attack against Israel, but it builds into its own defense system the use of the civilians above ground. So in that sense, to me, this is not something new at all, including this evening. They put in more leaflets telling people, we want to save your lives, go south. That's where the safe zone is.
Let me ask you, why don't I hear that from Palestinian guests, Gazan guests who come on? Why don't I hear the blame toward Hamas?
That's something that I think we're going to talk about after we've destroyed more of the Hamas capabilities. Katie, the challenging issue that I'm in right now is that I want to say, free the Palestinians from Hamas. Hamas is a very ideological Palestinian-based organization, and they are a horrific terror organization. And in my academic term, I'll call it that they are a hybrid terror organization. They're not only a terror organization. And they have been, in that sense, again, a terror organization, Katie, doesn't call itself a terror organization. It calls itself resistance. It calls itself, in all of the terms that we all have seen, freedom fighters. And what they did, not just on October 7th, by the way, that's not the first time they've done a horrible attack, but the mega genocidal terror attack of October 7th, which was taking ISIS capabilities but using them in the Palestinian arena, that's taken everybody apart. I'll add in, if I'm allowed to say more, that they uploaded their exploits. Is there a word for it? On Saturday, October 7th, and they planned and pre-planned taking it off social media from that Saturday night. So what happens in the Palestinian world is that we have to prove that they did what they did on October 7th. But look at what they're doing in the Gaza Strip. They built it as a military terror fortification to hold the hostages, and they use the civilians as their upper ground.
So we're looking at a fire inside Gaza. This is from an APTN feed. I don't know what's happening there. We haven't been able to verify, but clearly something is happening. How do you uproot Hamas? How do you uproot an idea? How do you not, with this extensive bombing, this ground incursion, create people who are even angrier toward Israel, more strident toward Israel? How do you give them hope in a campaign like this?
How do you live as the state of Israel next to Hamas that call for our destruction? How do you live in the state of Israel next to Hezbollah in Lebanon that call for our destruction? There are other people in the Palestinian arena. There are other people in the Lebanese arena. And in that sense, we do that separation between a homicidal, I don't like the terms that I use, but the terror organization that calls openly for our destruction. You know, for the last 10 years, Israel, we were wrong. We were hoodwinked. We thought that maybe Hamas, in their sense, because they said it often, 10 years, 20 years, it isn't about, they never said it's not about destroying Israel, by the way. All they said is that they're willing in the meantime for us to exist. That's not in the cards anymore. So what you try and do is you try to be in a clear voice that we're not trying to kill any civilians. We are trying to save their lives. That doesn't make it easier at the moment. I am completely aware of the humanitarian situation. Having said that, we cannot exist here when the terror organization with its capabilities exists next to us. Can we take it one step at a time? Can we destroy the capabilities and then with the world, with Palestinians, not us, we're for them the worst on earth, try and build something new. But the idea that you can leave it, to me, is worse. It's as if, it's, your problem, not anybody else's. I want to say just one more thing. If we don't destroy the terror capabilities that Hamas used on October 7th and are continuing to use, if we don't show that they lost, they are an inspiration not for the Palestinians. They are an inspiration for every terror organization worldwide. That is bad news for the world.
What about the security lapse that got Israel to this point? And the New York Times did a deep dive into years of failures, this idea that Hamas didn't have the capability, it wasn't worth listening to their radio commands, even on the very early morning of, before they breached the gate. This idea that it wasn't really anything that was happening, nothing to rise to the level of waking up the prime minister. How in the world does that happen?
I'm one of those in that sense, Katie. And I take it that I, too, if you had asked me on October 6th, if this was going to happen on October 7th, we were looking at Hezbollah in the north. But I want to be clear about that. Hezbollah had the exact same plan. For the last decade, we've been preparing for an all-out attack against dozens of Israeli communities, they call it conquering the Galilee. I don't think we were wrong about Hezbollah. We ignored and underestimated Hamas. But I want to add into this that Hamas did an entire program to make us think this erroneously. And at the same time that Hamas was preparing this, Hezbollah was preparing what it did in the north. And if I can just add one